Welcome to Books on Point. Blessed by Bosasa is a riveting, in-depth investigation into an extraordinary story of high-level corruption and rampant pillage of backdoor dealings. At the helm of the company was Gavin Watson, a struggle rugby player turned tenderpreneur who made his business to splash out gifts and cash to get up close with personnel and with some of the country's politicians and civil servants. In return, Bosasa won tenders to the tune of billions of rands and with friends in high places stayed clear of prosecution. I'm joined in studio by author Adriaan Basson, who's written the book Blessed by Bosasa. Adriaan, thank you so much for your time.
Hello, Nastasha.
I have to ask, what motivated you to write the book?
I've been investigating the Bosasa story for pretty much the whole of my professional life as a journalist. I started in 2006 when first in Parliament it was revealed that this company was selling television sets to the Department of Correctional Services for 26,000 Rand a television set. Now in 2006 you could buy a little car with that kind of money. So that really got my attention. We then later on managed to link the company to the DG of the department at the time, Linda T, and the Watson family added an extra dimension to this company. Over the years I investigated, found out more about how this company had really captured the Department of Correctional Services and other departments. At that time we didn't know of the term state capture, we just knew it was corruption. But I was also perturbed over the years about exactly what you just said, how the company managed to stay out of courts and out of prison themselves for bribing politicians in exchange for tenders. Of course, earlier this year in February, Angela Agrizzi, the chef turned COO of Bosasa, spilled the beans, sang like a birdie in front of the Zondo Commission. And then all my friends and family and everyone who supported me on this journey said, you must write the book. The nation all now knows about Bosasa and you know the whole story.
Yeah. So speaking of Bosasa, let's go back to the history of the company, how it was formed, the history of a character by the name of Van Zyl and how he met a certain group within the ANC Women's League, and then in come the Watsons.
Yes, very interesting. I always thought the ANC loomed large in the background and the shadows of Bosasa, and it turned out it did. So for the book, I uncovered for the first time the involvement of ANC Women's League leaders like Baleka Mbete, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nglakula, Lindiwe Zulu, etc., who are all very senior politicians today, who were actually involved in the formation of a company called Diambu. Now, Diambu was the first name, or the second name of Bosasa. It was first called Maritime Holdings, who managed catering and cleaning services for mining hostels on the West Rand. It then became Diambu Holdings, and interestingly, one of the interviews I did was with a woman called Hilda Ndude, who was quite a senior ANC politician in the day, and she was asked by these ANC Women's League leaders to represent them in this business. The Watson brothers told the ANC women that they need to get into business, they need to start money, they've just come out of exile, and a lot of them who I interviewed for this book, a lot of these politicians told me they were very naive, they didn't know what business looked like, and they trusted Watson, only to find out later that basically he was owning all the shares in the company, not them, as they thought they had. So Watson was really the kingpin, was really at the top of the story. Of course, then also blessing the ANC later years with cash, with food parcels. Individual ministers like Nomvula Mokonyane allegedly benefited. She, of course, denies it. And then, you know, all the other allegations of corruption that we've heard from at the Zondo Commission. I think what I tried to do was to get into the skin of the characters in the book and tell these stories.
Yeah. In chapter 11, I think it's titled Connecting the Dots. I mean, you mentioned, rightfully so, that we did not know the extent of the rot up until we had the Zondo Commission. However, there was a particular incident in which you were able to connect the dots, and one familiar name that I suppose interlinked in all the documents was a guy by the name of Linda, or rather, Linda Mti. Yeah. Tell me about him.
Nicknamed Rich Man. Linda Mti, senior ANC leader from the Eastern Cape, he was a leading figure in Nkosi Wesizwe as well in the Eastern Cape, and he was actually very close to the Watson brothers, specifically Ronnie Watson and Chris Hani. That was the grouping, Charles Nglakula as well. And he was, like I said, the Commissioner of Correctional Services at the time when the Bosasa companies were getting hundreds of millions of tenders for fencing, for catering and cooking. This was privatized. This was previously done by prison warders and prisoners as part of their rehabilitation. Security equipment, CCTV, etc., all to this one company. So we figured out we need to find out why this department was favoring one company. And that breakthrough that day came, I still remember, I was sitting at my computer and did some company searches. And I managed to find Linda MT had registered a company, and in this company was the company secretary of Bosasa. So this company was involved in a private company for the DG, who awarded them all these tenders, and shortly thereafter he left the department.
Well, our 404 viewers have just joined us, and we're in conversation with Adriaan Basson, who's written the book Blessed by Bosasa. So now you have to explain, because when I was explaining it to my colleagues in the newsroom, everybody was baffled about how the corruption was happening. But there was something that Bosasa was doing when it comes to the specifications of the tender documents, and there was a glaring similarity between those specifications and the actual official tender documents that were issued. What was Bosasa doing?
Yes, my sources told me from the early days that there's something funny with these tenders because, for example, let's take the catering tender. This was to cook food for prisoners. But the tender then also included security cameras and a control room off-site where you had to watch people, I don't know, frying eggs and cooking sausages. And these other catering companies, most of them black-owned, told me, we cannot compete with this company because we don't specialize in security. We cook food. We're a catering company. Then later on, I was leaked documents by sources. I had to work them very hard to get these sources. And I used forensic data to actually prove that these tender documents were created by Bosasa employees and their suppliers for the department. So think of it this way. The department puts out a tender for catering. The winning company was also the one who wrote the tender. I mean, and this is absolute. I think if people ask me what's the difference between state capture and corruption, I would use this example because you are so linked and so intrinsically part and integrated in the department that you actually write policy and tender documents for them.
One almost gets the sense that there was sort of a cult-like environment at the Bosasa offices where corruption was masked with this idea of Christianity and being religious and all these plaques that were around the office. But beneath all of it, there was something even more sinister happening. How do we then describe Gavin Watson? Because on the day of his memorial, you had two conflicting views. You had one saying that I think they almost compared him to Jesus Christ, and then the other saying, well, he was not anything like, you know, the character. How do we conclude him?
I think we as South Africans often have a binary discussion. Someone is either bad or good. And I think we need to move to a place where we can say someone like Gavin Watson did a great part. He and his brothers played a great role in the struggle against apartheid. Their refusal to play whites-only rugby should be applauded today still. I respect him for that. But he became part of a corrupt empire. In fact, he led that empire and used Christianity, unfortunately, I believe, to mask things, to intimidate people, to get people not to talk out under that veil of Christianity in the company. And that's why I ultimately ended up calling it a cult. So I think, you know, I think the ANC is it's hard for the ANC to grapple with this. If you looked at their statement after his death, only deifying them, but not saying anything about the corruption that's been known in the public for 10 years, that an institution called the SIU that was created by the ANC government who uncovered corruption, they didn't say anything about that. So I think that's something the party is struggling, probably getting to grips with.
All right, Adriaan, let's leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Well, our recommended book is titled The Infinite Game. It attempts to answer why do some businesses achieve long-lasting success and others don't. The New York Times best-selling author Simon Sinek offers a bold new approach to business strategy by asking one question: are you playing the finite game or the infinite game? Well, your weather details are coming after this. Goodbye.